Hello out there to all you model railroad enthusiasts, and welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for one more scenery update. It's beautiful weather outside here in northern Illinois, but I've actually been in the basement working on the railroad. I've also been outside enjoying the warm weather, watching my grandchildren play softball and baseball and soccer, and still getting some work done on the railroad. As you can see, have a lot of scenery done. Before we get to how all that happened, just want to remind you, if you are looking for some Soundtrax Tsunami 2 decoders, I still have a few left over to sell. I've been selling a lot of them. I sold all my locomotives. Still have some containers if you're interested. But check it out if you're looking for some Soundtrax Tsunami 2 decoders. Now, this is how things looked when we first started. I'm at the very end of doing scenery on this layout. I can't believe it. I moved into this house in July of 2021, and it's been not quite 4 years that I've been working on this layout, and I'm down to the last bit of scenery here. This is how things looked at the beginning of the week. Now, I knew I was going to have to move this platform here on this last piece. When I was putting on the scenery webbing and this rosin paper, it was hard to get at the back of the scenery. This is the West Vaco on the upper level, but because of the being up so high, it was difficult to reach in. I'd had to do a lot of bending over and reaching and trying to get my head down there to see what I was doing. It was just very uncomfortable to work on that. I did get it done, but I thought for doing the majority of the scenery, which is the painting and the ground foam and everything, I knew this platform probably should be moved out of the way. It is a heavy platform, but I was able to move it. It's made out of 2x10s, so it's pretty hefty. And now I'm at a lower level, and I can reach in there a lot more easily and be able to work on this. So I definitely wanted to get that done before I did anything else, before I got really serious on doing some scenery work here. Probably should have done it before I even did the cardboard webbing and the rosin paper, but better late than never. The first thing I was going to do is paint the track. So I used two colors. This is Rust-Oleum Rusty Primer. I like it because of the color. It's got a good color. Then I'm using Camouflage Earth Brown for the tie. So the rust I put on first, as you can see, and so I was mainly trying to get the sides of the rails a nice rusty color. And I got the ties rusty also, but we'll be painting again a second time. This is at an angle so that the sides of the rails get painted. And then I go straight down with the earth brown. And I'm able to paint the ties the earth brown color for railroad ties. And then still leave the rails a rusty color. And there is, of course, some overspray. So some of the rails, the sides of the rails, get the earth brown as well. But it makes a pretty good mixture of dirt on the rails as well as rust on the rails. So turned out pretty good. This is what I've been doing for the whole layout. And I'm kind of moving pretty quick here, but you kind of get an idea of how things look. Now, for the concrete ties, I use matte gray. And I actually made sure I painted that not straight down, but from the back of the layout towards the front, because I didn't want to get any of this on the rails. So by painting it from the back of the layout towards the fascia, I was able to get the concrete ties, the concrete color, and then kept the rails the rusty color. All right, I was kind of moving the camera quickly over the track there. But I'll have to remember to slow it down a little bit. All right, before the scenery started, I wanted to make sure I got the track covered up then. Didn't want to get any stray plaster on the track that's been painted. I try to go slow when I'm videotaping, but I don't want to go too slow because I don't want this video to be so long. This is the signals are underneath there, by the way, to cover them up. So anyway, I try to go slow, but then I'm also worried about it being too long of a video. Anyway, here's some of the plaster gauze I put on. Then you can see the rectangle shape pieces. Comes in 8-inch rolls that are about 15 feet long. I unroll it and I cut it up. Now on this part here, I've not only have the plaster gauze down, but also I have painted it with plaster. So I start off with here we have just the plaster gauze, just one layer. Now some people just put multiple layers of plaster cloth on there until it gets thick enough and hard enough, but I usually just put one layer of the plaster gauze. It's a little more expensive, obviously, than just straight plaster, which I buy, at 25 pounds at a time for about $20. So less expensive to just put one layer of the plaster gauze. This took 8 rolls of 8-inch by 15 feet plaster gauze, and then of course I then painted over it with regular plaster. And painting over it kind of takes away the mesh color or the mesh texture of the plaster gauze, and then of course gives it the added strength. Now, it's mostly for strength concerns. I was mostly worried about the area between the track and the fascia, because that's areas where a person might accidentally push on the scenery back towards the back. No one's going to be pushing on that or leaning on it. Now this area here where the scenery goes almost vertical, it's hard to put scenery foam on there because of gravity and the almost vertical slope. So those are always good places to put rock castings. So I decided I would put some rock castings here at the end of the road before it goes into the backdrop, and then also right here as the road first comes out. You can see that's almost a complete vertical. And I chose rock molds that had kind of a shallow depth. I didn't want any big, huge rocks there. I just wanted some rock formations. So I chose some rock molds that had a fairly thin. Here you can see what I didn't want to have. So I didn't want to have anything like this with these big, deep rocks. Didn't want anything like that. So I had to basically choose the molds I wanted. Then I actually cut them out to the size of the molds. That usually works out better. This is my last time doing rock molds, so it worked out pretty good. Now they're kind of shiny now because they're still wet. So I used 3 colors. I used a yellow color. I can't remember if it's yellow ochre. What you'll want to do is check a previous video I did on the Echo Canyon rock molds. I did a little bit more of a demonstration and description. That's from a few weeks ago. You can see those rock molds to the left there. So this is just some last rock molds. I want to match the rocks in the scenery, and I have to say they look kind of wet still, so when it's dry it almost matches perfectly those rocks in the backdrop. I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. I put a little bit more red in these rock molds because I wanted to kind of have a little bit of transition to the more red rocks of Castle Rock. But here you can see it's a little more dry here. It matches pretty good, I have to say. Maybe a little bit more of a deep color. Here's the Echo Canyon ones. And then also the scenery material I'll be using. This is underbrush here. And then the coarse turf. I usually put this down first, the fine turf. I use a lot of yellow grass and then the burnt grass, which is these two that are the same color. And then after I put the fine turf on it, then I add the coarse turf. Use the burnt grass and the yellow grass again here a lot. And then I use underbrush on third. So I kind of go from the fine texture to the thicker texture. Here's the paintbrushes I used. I used the small one for right up against the backdrop so that I didn't get paint on the backdrop. And then the bigger brush I used for the rest of the scenery. And this is the paint that I've been using on the entire layout. It's Sonoran Desert is the color. Now I was worried kind of the black, the final black wash that I put on kind of collected at the bottom, but I wasn't too worried about it because I knew that I was going to have a lot of vegetation along the bottom there. Here you can see. So the black definitely got all covered up. And I do have some of the scenery on here. Now this is a little bit lighter than what we'll have at the final because this was taken after I had sprayed it with wet water and then some diluted white glue. It's kind of cool the ways a lot of the ground foam settled on the rocks themselves. But it actually, again, now it really matches the backdrop almost perfectly. Now, before I went any further, I want to make sure I covered up the signals. I needed to have the base of the signals in place because the plaster was going to have to go around the base of the signals properly. Here's some more of the ground foam and stuff on. You can see it's very wet. You can see the diluted white glue on the rocks. I have about almost a little bit over half. Here's my paint and all the ground foam. Kind of try and keep it handy so it goes as quickly as possible. I wanted to try and match the backdrop also as I was doing this. That rock almost matches perfectly, I have to say. Some differences, but overall, definitely looks like it comes from the same type of territory. And then again, here's the rest of it done. And again, it's a little bit lighter than you would normally have. This is the Castle Rock area. Was kind of worried about how the transition would be. I think it turned out all right. As the scenery ages, you get less and less of a difference. Plus, I'm definitely going to put some more trees in, which will kind of break things up also. Again, I kind of wanted to match what was on the backdrop. I think it worked out pretty good. And again, this is wider than normal because of the white glue. For the scenery material, I use a formula of 3 parts water to 1 part white glue. And I just finished my last gallon. I think I've gone through about 4 gallons of white glue on this layout. When I was doing this, I was just really surprised that I'm to the point now where that's the last. This is the last of the scenery material I'll be doing. Might make some changes here and there, but I'm pretty much done with this type of scenery work. On this section here, I wouldn't call this section complete yet. I did get a whole lot done this week. But before I'm done with this area, I still will need to ballast the track, which you can see. Now, this is the next day. I take it back. This is still the same day, but things are a little bit more dry, and I did take off the masking tape. So as you can see, before I can call this section done, I need to ballast the track, which I'll be doing this week, hopefully, if I can break myself away from enjoying the outdoors. And I will also want to put the road in, put in paving for the road. So I'm not sure if I'll get both those things done. But once I do get them both done, then I will call this section done as far as basic scenery. Here you can see it's a little bit darker. It matches that darker area of the backdrop. And then it's a little bit lighter as you go down to the lighter areas. I also went through and countersunk all the screws on the fascia. Sanded thing. Actually, I haven't sanded anything down yet, but I did fill it in with some spackling. Didn't realize it, but I had some gaps there that I needed to cover up a little bit. This is where the Digitrax, you can see it there. I'll put that back on when we're all done. Let's use that pink spackling. Turns white when it's dry. But that did all this Saturday. And then here it is with the fascia painted and the platform back in, skirting up. Definitely looks a lot more finished with the fascia painted black. This is how it looks after this week. Definitely accomplished a lot. Very glad to get this done. This week the ballast will go in, at least the ballast, and hopefully maybe even the road. I'm not sure if I'll get both of them done, but and then I also want to do trees yet. Also, not only here but also on the Echo Canyon area where the roads go in. So that's where we got. This is where we are now. See some trains running through. This is Coal Train Empties. I think you've seen this one last couple of weeks. I need to mix things up a little bit. This is an Athearn Gevo and Intermountain Tier 4 Gevo. And then it looks like a AC 4400 by Scale Trains, and then some Rapido hoppers. This next train coming up is a Manifest train, and that's an Athearn AC 4400 CNW patch, and then an Athearn SD 70 ACE, and believe that's a Scale Trains Tier 4 Gevo. the ballast will definitely make a big improvement on this area. And the addition of trees, I think, should help a lot also. When I get the ballast down and the road in and all the trees in, the last thing I'm going to do is have a kind of a scenery celebration. It won't be a golden spike because there aren't any spikes in scenery work. However, my last bit of basic scenery that I'm going to put in is the 1,000-mile tree. Here's a picture of the prototype. This was an actual tree that was located at the exact position of 1,000 miles from Omaha when they were putting down the original main line for the Transcontinental Railroad. So this tree was right at the 1,000-mile point, and so they called it the 1,000-mile tree. And it unfortunately died in about 1909 or something like that, or 1929. So the Union Pacific planted a new one in its place. So if you go into this area, Echo Canyon of Utah along the Union Pacific Evanston sub, you can find this 1,000-mile tree. And I'm going to put this on the layout, and that's going to be my little, I guess you could say, golden spike celebration of having all the basic scenery complete on the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston sub after only 3.5 years about. It'll be our 4th anniversary of living here in July, and then I didn't actually start on the layout until August or September. So about 3.5 years, not bad for going from an empty basement to a finished basement and a full-size 2,200 square foot HO scale layout. Well, stay tuned for next week for ballast on this stretch, and hopefully some more work in addition to that. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment on this video. It's always appreciated. And make sure you check out the website if you're looking to pick up some Soundtrax Tsunami 2 decoders. The URL is in the description, so make sure you check that out. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a great week. Hopefully this next time I'll actually put the update on Sunday like I usually do. Till then, take care.